Should I say good morning or good evening, Natasha?
For me, it's evening.
Is it evening, really?
Yeah, 2 p.m.
Oh my
2:30 p.m. Yeah. Mhm.
God. For me, it's 8 p.m. So not that far away from your time zone. Welcome, Natasha. Hello to the Ikigai and Kaizen podcast. To everybody who's watching us, wherever you are, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. This is the Ikigai and Kaizen podcast. Welcome, Natasha.
Hello, thank you so much. It's funny that you say welcome, Natasha, because my name is actually Natasha Welcome. So
Yeah,
that's always a fun thing. Yeah.
I like your last name so much. When I was texting you and I was preparing for the podcast and I was sending you. So you sent your bio and welcome, welcome. Okay, now I'm saying welcome, welcome. So I can feel all that welcome and energy from you, Natasha. And ever since
Of course.
the first time last summer, if you remember our first talk. So
Yes.
so I felt, that we were on the same vibe. And whatever you do in Natasha is really very inspiring. So welcome again, Natasha. Welcome to the Ikigai and Kaizen podcast.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me here, Yousra, and also welcome to everyone who's listening to us at this point.
Thanks a lot. So Natasha, where are you now in the world? So I'm based in Tunisia. And what about you?
Oh, I'm in New Jersey, United States.
Oh,
Yeah.
great. Oh, great, great, great. And I've also noticed, Natasha, that you are a public speaker. So today we'll be exploring the different aspects, the different facets of Natasha's life. So, Natasha, so I would like to start a little bit from your early beginnings, from, your childhood dreams a little bit. So, I would like to talk a little bit to Natasha, with a little bit of, you know, going back a little bit into the past. So, what are your dreams, Natasha, when you were little? So,
Oh.
you becoming the person that you are now, doing the profession that you do right now?
I think from very young, I knew that I would impact the world, but I never know how because being an educator and speaker was not one of the things that I thought of. When I was very, very young, I wanted to be um, an air hostess. That was my first profession. And I keep skipping professions as I went along. And then probably around 9, I wanted to be a radio announcer, which I did for a short while in my adult life. Then I also wanted to be a banker, which I never did. So I wanted to be several things except a teacher. One of the reasons for this is that when I was in high school, particularly, we would make fun of our teachers sometimes and have different names for them behind their back, of course. And so to me, the teaching profession wasn't anything fun. It wasn't anything that I wanted to be. But um, here am I.
So seeing this, Natasha, is really surprising because, most of the people that I interviewed never did they want to become teachers. Do you know this? Everybody, all of them, is just like they have discovered this by chance, or they were inspired by a person, by a teacher, or simply they just, find this, through, serendipity, meeting someone, attending an event. So never was anyone, exposed to this before. Most of the speakers that I had, they had the same experience. So, Natasha, if I ask you a question about, uh, you said you were, radio host, a speaker, and you mentioned something interesting. You said you never wanted to be a public speaker. Can you tell us, Natasha, uh, after becoming now a public speaker, what's the impact of this on your life?
Yes. So actually I never thought of being a public speaker. I know I never wanted to be a teacher, but the
Yeah.
public speaking part, that was not even in my thoughts. So yeah, my mom thought I would be a nurse because I was very always caring and doing always, I would always help them to put Band-Aid on their wounds and things like that. I was always inclined that way. And so now I'm seeing the teaching and nursing, the connection between the nurturing professions. Yeah, but the public speaking part, I have never thought, it was never a part of my thinking, actually. But yes, now I see that your voice is very important.
Yeah.
Every one of us have a voice to do good in this world and to help someone throughout this process of our life. And when we use public speaking, that's the way in which we can actually lead others to the path that they should actually go, and we can actually advocate for others. So I'm very well using my voice now, and I'm super excited.
I really can relate to what you're saying, and then Natasha, because myself, I'm fond of advocacy, especially for teachers. Not necessarily for teachers ourselves, but also for students, for education, for whatever comes with that experience. And now what is striking, Natasha, is like people automatically think that if we're teachers, immediately they think of us being good public speakers. Do you think, technically speaking, Natasha, every teacher can be a good public speaker?
Yeah, every teacher can be, but not every teacher is, because teaching in a classroom among students who you already know and you took an entire year to know them, it's so much easier. But public speaking, every time you're standing in front of a different crowd, and sometimes for the very first time, most of the time. So it's a whole new different type of braveness that you have to bring to the table. You get to know your students and you gradually move into each other, and that's okay. And you're always contained with these students in a classroom setting. But public speaking, like for example, when I go to conferences, I am meeting the host for the first time. I'm meeting my participants for the first time, and I'm there setting up my screen and getting my slides together. And it's like lights, camera, action. And I have to be there, speaking to these people that I'm meeting for the first time. It's a very different thing. Yeah.
Yes, it's very different. The audience is different. The experience is different. What you feel, what we feel as public speakers is different. Myself included, I'll just, in a nutshell, share my experience as a public speaker. I was the shy student in class. I never thought that I would be a public speaker, and never had I thought that I would have a podcast and host people to talk to. But, I have evolved over time being a public speaker. So I started first, being a public speaker in class. So, and then once people notice that I have, like a kind of charisma saying or conveying a message, I was, solicited to create short videos. So I started really talking and promoting the schools that I worked with until I've discovered Toastmasters. And then fell in love with public speaking, prepared speeches and impromptu speeches and table topics. And after this also, it was, simultaneous. I started presenting in conferences. The audience is different, as you said, preparing slides, and interacting with the audience and tailoring your presentation to people's expectations. It's not just like about yourself, your experience, more of just making it really useful to the people there you're interacting with. That's the point.
Yep.
Just exposing content because everything is available.
Mm-hmm.
In the past, it was in books, now it's on internet. But how, as a public speaker, you can really relate what you're saying to the audience is really important. So,
Yeah.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
like to
Yeah,
say,
I wanted to add, it's very important. And as one person say, never allow what you want to say get in the place of what people need to hear. So it's not only about, our message and what we want to say. It's like, what is the pain point at that time? What are these people here to know? What is their craving? What is their issue at this point? Are we going to meet their needs after this specific public speaking, So things like that. You want to make sure that you're meeting the needs of your audience first and foremost.
exactly, exactly. It's like, otherwise it will be like a monologue. So we're far from doing that, and especially, if you're teaching class or conferences. So it's really important to follow that process. And the audience is an essential part in this. So if I ask you a question now, Natasha, without public speaking and Natasha with public speaking, what's the difference?
Natasha, without public speaking, was just like you. I was very shy, in some ways. And I think I told my students that story sometime back that when I was 3 years old, I got lost. Um, my mom sent me to, it was an Easter day, and I was supposed to meet with my older siblings, and I didn't find them. And I remember crying, and someone brought me back home, long story short. So I think that had driven a fear inside of me. And so I grew up with that fear. So public speaking, really, I had to let go of that fear to become a public speaker. And so me, with public speaking and without public speaking, there's a total difference. I'm able to say exactly how I feel with public speaking. I'm able to share my voice, not for my own self only, but for others. Most of the time I'm speaking, I'm basically advocating for others. So, and there's so much fulfillment in that, like really speaking up for others, for having a voice for the voiceless. There's so much fulfillment in that. So, yes, I really love myself better with public speaking.
And we love you. We love you with
Mhm.
that, Natasha, with the
Yeah.
public speaking aspect, and whatever you are contributing to the ELT field. And the next question, Natasha, is related to Natasha's impact, personal touch into other people's lives. How is it, Natasha? So you can start talking about, the classroom, family, as you like, maybe community, where you live. So Natasha's impact onto the world, from which point you want to start with, Natasha. So
Yeah, I would like to, I think I want to go professionally a little bit. Um, my impact, I've been in education for over 20 years. And so I started with early childhood. I've always loved language acquisition. So I started to teach early childhood, and that was basically first language acquisition. And then for 14 years, I taught at an international school. International schools are set up in different parts of the world to bring international impact to their students. So it's like creating a global village. So that is something that really resonates with me when you mentioned about impact just now. I just had to mention that because it really resonated with me. When you teach at an international school, it's like you're in one location, but you're impacting globally. Um, every school in the United States or wherever you are would have students from different parts of the world, but international schools allow those students to bring their background to the classroom. So to create a global village and to create that global impact. So it's a difference. So their background is used as part of the curriculum or part of the framework
yeah.
so that everyone can have a global impact. So that was really special for me, um, and really impacted me as well, even as I help students to be, risk takers and innovators. I was able to help myself as well. So part of the impact that I bring is the innovation that I bring, because at this point, I'm teaching at the college, yes, but I'm also in the workplaces consulting as well. So I'm like literally cross-pollinating, bringing a little bit of, and I'm not only in education, I'm in the medical space. So it's a nice cross-pollination that is happening. And that innovation, it's like a kaleidoscope of colors that I think I bring to life and to people's experience.
I feel you and understand exactly what you're saying because the international experience changed my life myself. So, asking you about Natasha, about one experience that you might recall and something you could not forget, maybe someone, a student had a project which was impactful, an experience learning a new language, for instance, from someone. So that whole multilingual experience, Natasha, can you recall something maybe we can learn from it, from you?
Oh, an experience that I quite remember is at the same international school, I started to learn Spanish. I was a general ed teacher, and I would just sit in the class when the Spanish teacher comes in. And so with my students, I'm just listening to the teacher teaching them. And that's how I decided to learn Spanish. I'm still not advanced in Spanish, but I know, a great bit. So, because language, when I was in high school, language was taught to me as a subject. So many times we teach language as a subject, but it's really a language. It has to be taught with all the 4 domains: reading, writing, listening, and speaking. So I came out of high school with good grades in Spanish, but still couldn't speak it. See?
The proficiency.
So yeah, and I still couldn't speak it. So when I sat there and began to learn and understand, how to read, write, listen, and speak Spanish, then that was really an eye opener for me. And then it also helped me when I was teaching English. I'm thinking of this right now. If all English language teachers, whether we call it ESL, because we have several names: ESL, ENL, English as a new language; EAL, English as an additional language; EL, English language. Oh my goodness, there's so many acronyms. And now I think in New Jersey we use ML, multilingual learners. But if teachers of this group can actually learn a new language, it is the best way to understand how to teach English language. Mm-hmm.
Do you think the profile of a teacher learner can impact the profile of a teacher educator, which means sometimes teachers tend to kind of not transfer, but kind of take some of those outcomes from a teacher learner, just like someone learning Spanish. So the way you learn it means that's the way you're going to teach it. Yeah. And at the same time, Natasha, don't you think it's good to put yourself in someone else's shoes as a learner so that to know how to better teach it? Because, being a foreign language learner, a foreign language teacher, how can you see that, Natasha?
Yes, of course. You're hitting the hammer right on the head. Of course, I believe that for us to actually gain empathy for our students, we should put ourselves in that position. And I know, especially living in the United States, we don't have to be in that position because we're in a country where English is our first language, and English is the language that is spoken mostly around the world. You don't have to, but you should deliberately put yourself in that position where you can feel what your students are feeling, understand what your students are understanding, see what worked for you and what didn't work, and know, not just from the textbook, but understand what will work and what just will not work as a learner of language. So I think that's very important, because my philosophy of education, Yousra, is that everyone in the classroom is a teacher and everyone is a learner.
Yes, you got it.
So really excited to learn even as I teach.
So that was the next question, is like, as a teacher, don't you feel that we learn from our students? We learn a lot. And you
yes,
part of it. Yes, you answered this, Natasha. And thanks for sharing this experience, Natasha. And you mentioned multilingualism. And I've noticed many colleagues, because multilingualism is part of my context, but not that much. If you're not a teacher at a multicultural in a multicultural context, or at an international school or university, you won't be necessarily exposed to multilingualism here in my country. But in the USA, in other countries like in Dubai, in Canada, in some regions of the world, people speak more than one language at the same time, and they use it, simultaneously. So what do you think, Natasha, the cultural aspects of students' background? So you said it's something really interesting because, coming from maybe families of immigrants, sometimes they're not born in the country, so they bring the language, they bring the culture with them, and they bring that to class. So how far do you think it's important for teachers nowadays to be really equipped with the right skills to deal with those, with this diversity, but at the same time maintain the student identity, respected in class?
Yeah, I think for students, for teachers to really understand the diversity of the students, we cannot rely only on the information we get from the office, like name, date of birth,
Mm.
you know, country of birth. No, that's limited information. So when I did the New Jersey TESOL, we did an inquiry-based learning. I led an inquiry-based learning on your student demographic is speaking. Are you listening? You know, because I think that there's much more speaking that is happening, but we're not listening. We're paying only attention to the very the information that a student use for enrollment. But every time we see our students, every time they open their mouth, every time they write essays, we're getting data as to who our students really are and how we should really empathize with them and how we should really meet them. Okay. At the NICE TESOL, I did another inquiry-based learning on how diverse is your language diversity. And that, yeah, that was basically, we explored the whole avenue of how different students with, let's say, a Spanish background would learn English from how different someone from with a Mandarin background, because they learn English differently, and also they also they have different struggles because of the language background. Some
Yeah.
languages are close to English, some languages are farther from English, some language have the same English structure, some language have a different writing skill. So all those things makes the diversity of language, totally unique. Another thing we need to take into consideration is where there's a language barrier, there's always a cultural barrier. Language and culture go hand in hand with each other, and we need to understand that. So we have to not only teach language, but understand culture to teach language. So, um, and culture is much deeper than we see culture generally. A lot of times when people talk about culture, they talk about the sombrero and the food we eat and the music we dance to and the clothes we wear. But culture runs so much deep. I like to say that I like to refer those as the leaves of culture. That's if you see culture as a tree, that's only the leaf. But the deep roots are the things we talk about, the things we don't talk about, the things we laugh at, the things we don't laugh at. Those deep things are culture, are cultural things. So as teachers of language, we really need to delve a little deeper into culture.
So if ever you have to define culture, so you've used the metaphor, which is a nice one, the metaphor of the tree. But if ever you would define the different aspects to be included in the culture, what are they, Natasha, according to you?
Yeah, culture would be people's deep down belief, like, in terms of even learning styles. Um, like for example, you could be forcing individualistic learning on a culture that mostly like to learn collectively.
Exactly.
There's some cultures that are collective and we could be forcing individualism. And then there's some cultures that are individualistic and could be forcing collective, And so the thing is, it's not necessarily to have them just do what their culture says. They can gradually move and understand other ways of learning, but we have to understand what is happening. So if we don't understand what is happening, we'll be like beating a dead horse. So we have to understand so we can gradually move students into, exactly how we want them to, be streamlined in the classroom. So that's very important.
Yes, exactly. And I can recall some, moments, an experience that I had with a multicultural, classroom, very diverse at that time. And it was middle school. And what I can remember is that I used to teach them a drama theater course. And they had to bring that, to class. And
Mhm.
I was amazed, in advance. I was amazed in the different activities, especially in the improvisation ones. So as you said, everyone has a different vision to collaboration sometimes. Sometimes it's just
Yep.
like they just don't want to work in groups, and they want to draft their own story according to what they see the definition of a story to be. So
Mhm.
I really understand fully what you're saying, and you got me even nostalgic to those, class. So that was a very creative class I had. Just in case they watch me now, I'm saying hi and hello, and I was so glad to have them as students, even though they were sometimes, difficult to deal with, challenging in the sense because they're young, they bring in all that energy, and
Yeah.
that class sometimes, Natasha, that no one wants to teach is that they always get that class. So I had the chance of having those classes, and we used to have yoga, we used to have meditation. Sometimes they ask for a nap, so I have to go to the administration and request, you know, 5 to 10 minutes, because I had them during lunch break, so they can have that moment of rest. Because in their culture,
Um,
they used to have naps. So, but
Fiesta, yeah. Mm-hmm.
yes, a lot of things. So going back to that experience, you got me nostalgic into that. So thank you, Natasha, for bringing the topic, in the conversation. So Natasha, the next question is that I don't want the interview to be, Q&A, but tell something about why even this podcast, is so global. And you mentioned multilingualism. The title of the podcast, Ikigai and Kaizen, it's Japanese, nothing to do with English. So the word got, adopted into the West and it got westernized, but still, I used to kind of have, a question with my interviewees every time because they bring their culture with them. So I used to have one question in their native language always, and we used to compare their language structure of the sentence to English. And there is one episode with a friend of mine who is Canadian and lives in Japan. He used to teach me how to have, a full sentence in Japanese. For them, they start not with a subject, they start with a verb. And then they have
Ah,
at the end.
good to know.
It's really, I hope I did not get things right about the subject, but they start with a verb. In Arabic, we start with a verb. ذهب
Oh,
إلى السوق, which means Rami went to the market. It's the same. So because in some cultures, action speaks louder than words or than the subject. So it's really, really important, studying the culture of the students we're teaching because it can get us, far, far away learning more about the people we teach. So thank you, Natasha. I'm so glad today. I have so many questions. So
sis.
keep it, limited to your time and so very I respect you know, the time you're devoting to this podcast and talking to me, Natasha. And the next question is about diversity, Natasha. So, um, so diversity in the classroom. So,
Mhm.
Natasha, I'll tell you a secret. A little secret, Natasha, which is I stalked you a little bit using AI. So I know you. We've met, online last summer. You sent me your bio. We've been friends on LinkedIn. But this is my little secret that I don't tell my guests is like I stalk them a little bit with AI. So collect the info that exists online about a person. So I just typed her name into Perplexity AI. So that's the tool that I used. Who is Natasha Welcome? And I was amazed. I was amazed, even with the topics that AI, told me about you. And Natasha, I'll tell you, Natasha Welcome is someone who is fond of public speaking. She uses topics like emotional intelligence. She focuses on diversity, multilingualism. I'll tell you exactly, Natasha. There's no secret to be hidden. Okay. You tell me, is it true or not?
Oh, that's so funny. That's hilarious.
Natasha, who's she? Okay, here's it.
Okay, let's go. I'm all for it. Let's go.
It's you. All right. So they say Natasha Welcome is an educator, international keynote speaker, and education consultant based in New Jersey. She specializes in English language acquisition and has over 20 years of experience serving English language learners. You have founded your consultancy agency, which is called Metamorphosis Education.
Yes.
It's very close to transfer. Do it. So can you tell me about your business, Natasha? So how do you assist organizations in overcoming their language barriers? So what do you exactly do, Natasha?
Oh, so Metamorphosis, it's I really love that name. That name was really given to me, I would say, by God. Um, because the caterpillar becomes metamorphosis is the process whereby the caterpillar becomes the butterfly. And so first, I want to share that with you, where the caterpillar doesn't look anything like the butterfly. It changes state totally. So yes, the Metamorphosis is a business where I decided to help my students outside of the classroom. I realized that students who speak English as a second language, um, they are not only struggling inside the English language classroom, but they have struggles outside because they live a normal life like us. They go to the supermarket, they're on their jobs. And I thought to myself, if educators are struggling to meet the needs of these students, what about a manager who have someone who doesn't speak English as their first language? What about a CEO who have a team? So I decided to stretch myself a little outside of the classroom. So it's basically the same audience, or sometimes the audience is a little bit different, but it's a similar message. So Metamorphosis, when I consult or I speak at conferences, it's me helping managers, CEOs, and those people who have English language learners in their care. Sometimes they need to build multilingual team, and there's a frustration, that is there because of language barrier. So I like to say that language diversity can be an asset, but you have to know how to use it. So I help to build multilingual teams, or sometimes to meet multilingual customers. So I'm in the medical space, helping doctors, hospital administrators, and medical practitioners to also meet the needs of their multilingual patients as well.
Oh,
So yeah.
kudos, Natasha. I've tried this, after COVID a little bit, and then I went back to my full-time, position afterwards. But I've tried it with language coaching. So I blended both coaching and language coaching in this sense. So I was coaching managers as well, and high position, managers, and in corporate training, and sometimes Tunisians in my country who work abroad and had to use English in other contexts abroad. And it was really, an eye-opening experience to me, because English goes beyond the classroom.
Oh yeah.
Tool. I see English as a tool. I see language as a tool, not only English, but now most specifically, because people use it, as you said, in the street. They use it for work. They use it sometimes to get married to someone overseas. So you never know what kind of bridge it can really enable people to go. Sometimes, yeah, I mentioned marriage because I've watched a show. Yeah, I think it's called yeah, let me just remember, Natasha, what's his name? It's like a fiance. I can remember 60 days visa or something. It's about someone who has to get ready before applying for a visa to the USA, and they don't master the English language at all. And I've watched the episodes where they feature Tunisian ones because yes, when I get married
Is
to
that
people.
on Netflix?
Yeah, I'll look up for the name. I'll tell you exactly. I think it's the 60. I can't remember the name exactly, but the language can be a barrier sometimes. So I'll ask AI. So what's the name of? So, but the funny thing is that um, sometimes the language can be a barrier to change in someone's life. A 180%, degrees.
Yeah.
So better use it for the good reason. So I'll look up for the name of the show after, and I'll tell
Mhm.
you. But the thing is that sometimes people, they stay away from their dreams simply because they have
Mm,
limiting beliefs. Those limiting
yes.
beliefs about, no, I'm not good in English. I'm not going to improve, especially if they're foreign language learners. Or
Mm,
like myself, for instance, once in college, I had to choose either Italian or German or Spanish. I've chosen the closest one to French because my French is my second language. So I chose the safest, comfort zone. So if ever maybe I've learned a new language, it may have served me better in my career, maybe, who knows? So, language as a tool and language as you use it, Natasha, for your service to consultancy and metamorphosis. So,
Mhm.
let's say, can you tell us, Natasha, as an entrepreneur, was there any challenge you went through during this experience of venturing into being a solopreneur?
Oh, yes, there have been challenges and there are challenges. Um, One of my challenges, I remember my very first challenge was getting on social media. Oh my goodness. When you look at me posting now on LinkedIn, you might say, oh, she just loves. That was like miles and miles of coming. I had to take steps and it was a long journey. That was a huge challenge for me to, you know, get to that place where I'm willing to post on social media and not hiding my talents under a bushel and thinking that, oh, they'll find me somewhere. They look under a rock to find me. No, I had to realize that, you know, if you don't put yourself out there, if you don't say exactly, you know, the problems you're there to solve, how would people know? So that was one of a really huge challenge. Um, and until now, just building, going through, trying to think, what should I do first? What should I do next? Where should I put my energies? All those are challenges that I face daily: time management, reaching schedules, you know, all of those things. Yeah.
Yeah,
But I can say it's good and very rewarding. I really love, because what it is, being an entrepreneur helps you to become. It's not like you are doing something on the side. You're becoming someone that is different. If you're if you think of it as, oh, I'm gonna just learn how to do this to help people, then it's not gonna be as rewarding. You
Mhm.
have to learn how to become. You have to build capacity within yourself to help others. So it's the becoming part that is really intriguing for me. Yeah.
Do you think, Natasha, success needs a version of oneself, which is sometimes, challenging to achieve, but without those aspects of say the current Natasha, you wouldn't have achieved the same success. So I clarify and I repeat my question. Sometimes people, they just want to be successful and they don't take that extra mile to do it. But do you think that in order to make that quantum, jump,
Quantum leap. Yeah. Hmm.
quantum leap, into that reality that you want, do you think it's necessary to go beyond some limits in oneself, like fear of public speaking, fear of
Oh
getting
yeah.
exposed on social media? Sometimes people, they just, create channels, faceless channels, just to voice
Mhm.
over and they advertise for their business. So what do you advise? I changed the whole question, Natasha. What do you advise novice entrepreneurs to start with if they don't know from where to start?
Oh, mindset is where to start.
Yeah.
Mindset is key. Even when you're not making physical movement,
Yeah.
read books, do things that will shift you into the right mindset, because that's key. As long as it starts up here, as a man thinketh, so
Yeah.
is he. So as long as it starts up here, you're gonna do. So we first have to be before we do.
Exactly.
So begin to be. That's the thing. We cannot move into a new position in our old selves. The
Exactly.
caterpillar cannot be a caterpillar, part caterpillar and part butterfly. He has to make that decision to go into a chrysalis and become something different. And you have to make that decision to move away, even when you don't know what you're actually going to become. Because this is like, for example, if a car is driving, you're planning to go like 20 miles away. You, the car light doesn't shine from here to 20 miles. It's as you go, the light shines, right? So it's the same thing with entrepreneurship. As you go, the light shine. And like the caterpillar, you have to give up those legs, the things that support you now. You have to give up all those legs to take on two wings. And what all those legs couldn't do, only two wings does. The
Exactly.
two wings can take you to a place where all those legs couldn't take you. And some of it would be hibernation, like going into that chrysalis, getting away from people sometimes, getting away from the familiar. And that's a lot of issues for young entrepreneurs. We want to have the metamorphosis happen to us, but we want everyone to watch it. No, sometimes you have to be alone. The caterpillar has to be alone in that chrysalis, and it happens in solace, it happens in solitude, it happens quietly. You have to make up your mind to do whatever it takes. And some of it would be shedding people who are not good for you at this point, you know? So you have to do whatever it takes and changing your mindset. All of those things happen in what I call the chrysalis. All those things happen in the chrysalis so that you can take on those two wings, that you can fly and be beautiful and see the world from a whole new vantage point.
What a lovely speech, Natasha. Standing
I
ovation.
know, right?
I see the Natasha now, the public speaker, and I would love to attend, yeah, in person, one of your presentations or one of your speeches, Natasha, really. Natasha, the last question, and I'm really, really so glad to be talking to you today, and I wish this conversation would never end.
I know, right?
But the time and also, so Natasha, the last question would be if now you try to visualize the future version of Natasha, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, how would you see your life, Natasha? How would you see it?
Well, in the same spirit of dealing with language diversity, I see myself going in the more humanitarian ways as well, helping people from different countries, and not all of it would be necessarily a job per se. Some of it would just be what I call ministry, what I call just, touching people with God's love. So I see myself heading in that way. Um, I've already begun to garner international, leverage in terms of like people asking me to be on boards and in parts of Africa and different things. So I see, because language diversity goes deep, it goes all over. Wherever there's people who speak different languages, you can talk about language diversity, you can talk about cultural diversity. So I've already seeing myself, getting into different places. One of the things I cannot say where I'll be in 10 years or 5 years, just because from my experience, every time I make plans, and it's good to make plans and you have to make plans, but sometimes life just shifts things just a little bit different, you know? Yes, right, right. So, yeah, but I that's what I'm seeing right now, that I'm going into that area. I also am connected to the United Nations associations.
Yeah.
So that is one place where I put my energies as well. And I like to dig into SDG 4. And I'm now seeing that I'm also digging into women's rights as well. For this year, I've got so many appointments to speak for women as well. And some of the things that I'll be doing in Africa and in other parts of the world has to do with women. So yeah, that's where it's gonna go. And I'm
I,
excited.
I'm in Africa. I'm in North Africa. In case you consider visiting my country for any particular reason, let's meet soon in the MENA region, Middle East, North Africa, and all of us we advocate for the same rights for everybody, human rights.
Yes.
As simple as that. So thank you so much, Natasha. And I will let you add one more thing if you want before we wrap up. So here you go, Natasha.
Okay, so I would like to add to people who are listening to this podcast, because all of us have dreams and visions locked up inside of us, and we ask ourselves, how can this thing be? How can we do this thing that we're feeling on the inside? Just be mindful of your why. Do not worry about the how as yet. Be mindful as the why. Why do you want to do what you're doing? Do you want to help someone? Is there a group of people that you want to advocate for or do something great for? That's how it started for me. The how is going to come so much later. And the how will come in pieces. It will never come in a big package. You will know, well, how to do this from now to 20 years. No, it's not going to be like that. As you make your step, you will see the light the light will shine as you drive. You will see the lights. Okay. And as one person said, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. That is going to happen as well. As you are burdened with this thing that you have inside of you, you will see something pop up. Oh, there's a free Zoom to do this, or there's someone offering coaching to do that. It's going to happen like that. It's just going to happen like that. God has a way of just making things come through for us. So keep holding fast to that vision, strengthen your mindset. And I'm going to also give you my information, Yousra, so that anyone wants to contact me, they can contact me at info@meconsultants.org, consultants with an S.org, or I'm on LinkedIn as well. So
Yes, sure.
I'm very happy and very pleased to be here. Thank you.
I will add everything related to your information, your website, your email address, at the description part of the podcast once I will post this on YouTube, so that people who will watch this maybe would like to reach out to you, they will do it. And knowing the fact that you welcome everybody's energies, Natasha, welcome. So I'm sure they will enjoy interacting with you just as much as I did ever since I've known you, Natasha.
Yes.
Thank you for being my last guest for the Ikigai and Kaizen International Podcast for 2024. And yes, carrying on with the Ikigai podcast for next year, inshallah, with new guests, new ideas, same mindset, yet different. We are all united. So thank you so much, Natasha. And best wishes. Enjoy your holidays and happy new year and best wishes ever to whoever.
Thank you.
Yes, to whoever's watching us. This is us wishing you. So Natasha, 3, 2, 1, we'll say happy new year, both of us together. So 3, 2, 1, happy new year.
Happy New Year.
So this is it for the Ikigai. And I don't know what's wrong with me today about the title of the podcast. Ikigai and Kaizen International Podcast. So with its last episode for 2024, thanks everybody. Stay safe, stay blessed, and see you in 2025. Bye-bye.
Bye.